Madam Web broke the record as the worst box office opening weekend a Sony Spider-Man movie has ever had. Ignore that the original Spider-Verse is in second place. That movie ended up doing well over time. All because people were like, oh my god, that was gas. You have to see that 3 times in theaters with me, man. But for some reason, I just don't think anybody is gonna do that for Madam Web. Don't get me wrong, the movie is getting a lot of word of mouth. If you looked at the number of views that videos about Madam Web are racking up and how much people are talking about it in general, you would think that people are just cheesing over this thing. But then you start reading what they're actually saying, and people can't even muster up the irony to pretend they like this movie like they did for Morbius a few years back. Madam Web is a train wreck. Dead on arrival, Madam Web review. Madam Web is horrible. There is just no dopamine to be milked out of this joyless hour and 54 minutes of slop from any angle. We can't even roleplay as fans of the thing and make jokes about how they said it's wedding time. Right now, it just feels hollow and like a little chunk of ourselves flake off our souls and turn into ashes. Hi again, guys, and I'm part of the reason this movie flopped, did a flip, and broke its neck while landing. That's because I did not see it, not even to make this video. Oh, but Kwite, you need to form your own opinions on things. You can't just get them from the internet. You gotta set an example for your audience. No, I don't. It's flattering you think I'm capable of thinking for myself, but I'm gonna be real with y'all for a second. I do not care enough about you, not enough to put myself through the pain of making my 3 a.m. blue light abused eyes watch this whole thing. Plus, how bad the movie is isn't really the most interesting part of it to me. It's more about everything else surrounding Madam Web. Everything caught in its web, you might say. Stuff being said on the World Wide Web. Somebody just old yeller me already, please. All the stuff surrounding Madam Web is elevated when I think of this movie as a nebulous, ambiguous entity, an anomaly in the laws of reality that spawned on its own from the fabric of the universe, where its sole purpose was giving humanity something to just collectively shit on. Sure, certain things from the movie will leak into my brain that I never want to know the context of, but those in a vacuum are very fun. Like, apparently, in the movie, a character is being thrown through space and time, or who even cares, and they just fly by the stylized S from the actual copyrighted Spider-Man logo. Oh my god, it's Spider-Man! In the most shameless way possible. From everything I've heard, this movie is, in essence, the biggest budget Pepsi ad ever made. I'm not giving you a spoiler warning because by spoiling it, I'm saving you the mistake of indulging your curiosity to watch this. Listen, we're all pussies, every single one of us, and you need to accept that as a cat, boy, girl, or other, this will kill you. But apparently the ad placement is so blatant that in the final set piece, the main villain is killed by, get this, being hit by a giant Pepsi sign. Not just that, but the Pepsi sign is a real place you can visit in New York City. Dude, that sign could be like a pilgrimage site for big dumb morons. I've always wondered if companies are actually fond of those kind of ads in movies. Like Sony says, hey, we'll include your product in a big scene in our upcoming blockbuster, but it's gonna be of your branding literally being destroyed and killing a guy. A message I'm sure that shareholders would be absolutely creaming their pants to endorse. I was at the dentist today for an hour and a half with Imagine Dragons playing in the background the whole time, and I can't believe that wasn't the most painful experience I had today. It is genuinely incredible how little anybody who's seen this movie wants to do with it, as well as how little anybody cursed to be involved with making it wants to be associated with it. On the red carpet, Dakota Johnson and every single actor there looks like they'd be willing to try and escape Alcatraz if that's where the premiere was taking place. Just the least amount of passion a person can possibly have for any creative work. One that they spent hours of their limited lives helping make. During every interview she's given, Dakota Johnson looks like her family's lives are being threatened in order to keep her on the cast. And like, sure, she doesn't necessarily want them to die, but she wants to be off the movie a little more than she wants them to live.
I mean, what percent of Marvel movies have you seen? Let's be real. And this isn't meant as a negative. Like, again, just...
4%.
4%.
Which is like 15 minutes of one.
He didn't say MCU, he said Marvel. And if we're talking every Marvel movie ever, 15 minutes of one is a fraction of a percent. Dakota Johnson is at the lowest amount of possible fucks you could give about anything ever. She's not only checked out of the movie that she's literally in, but out of Marvel movies in general. Listen, some of those movies are good, but in her position, I would not blame her for never finding that out. Because Dakota Johnson's experience making the Madam Web movie sounds about as traumatic as storming Normandy Beach on D-Day. But all you have is a pocket knife and toilet paper for clothes. If you need more proof on how little the MCU means to Dakota Johnson, here's her trying to name all 3 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Spider-Man, here he comes.
Here he comes,
That's number 1.
Yep.
Spider-Man, and he's back. And the other one, the last one is the Goblet of Spider-Man.
Need a vacation.
Harry, Spider-Man, and the Goblet of Man.
That last one, Goblet of Spider-Man, as she said it, 7th highest grossing movie of all time, by the way. I almost thought that she at least knew the Green Goblin was in that one, which would be much more than is fair to expect of someone who's been through everything she has. But then it clocked that, oh, she's making a Harry Potter reference. And then I started punching the air like Hitler was right there to get smacked in his dumb little jaw. I hate that guy, man. And you know what else hates Hitler? G-Subs. These guys make the only energy drink I've ever had that doesn't make me crash with low blood sugar. And on top of that, they also have caffeine-free versions of a ton of their flavors. That way I can sip on that good taste when I'm trying to go to bed at a normal time and stay hydrated. You can check them out at my special link in the description for 10% off your purchase, or just use code Kwite to get the same shit.
Do you get a certificate or something?
I feel like I should get an Oscar.
I don't believe that she believes that. I do think she probably feels the same amount of stress making this thing that a person would usually have while giving an Oscar-worthy performance. But Dakota's effort was for no reward, though. There was no prestige or seeing the positive reaction to how much of yourself you poured into a character at the end of the tunnel. For Madam Web, there was only the end of the tunnel, being done with it. Everything before that was just walking on a pointlessly hot bed of coals.
Loved it. Are you a sarcastic person yourself at all, or is that kind of...
I'm not very sarcastic, no.
Okay, so maybe she does believe that. A lot of what she said is very much recontextualized when we take her word at face value, and then also look at her face during what she's saying and assume that it shows exactly what she's feeling. In another interview, Dakota was asked about that really dumb steadying spiders in the woods line becoming a shitpost, which is, if you don't remember, the biggest buzz the trailers for Madam Web ever managed to pitifully generate. And even she has no idea what the hell that stuff was about.
I was in the Amazon with my mum when she was researching spiders right before she died. Do you remember that going viral?
Why did that go viral?
I think it went viral because, out of context, people were just like, what does this mean?
She was probably off an edible here, man. Though being asked the question about something you supposedly said and may or may not remember saying, something that makes no sense to you as to why a bunch of other people remember it, may leave you feeling similarly dazed as Chief and some teeth. All that aside though, I really have to respect how much she just doesn't give a fuck. You can say she signed on for this, so she really doesn't have a right to complain about the promotion that she's supposed to do, or you can say that she was coerced with bad information, that she was like led into this without her knowledge. I'm just more concerned with the level of game she is displaying here. No matter the situation, this is genuine apathy in its purest, most impressive form. And still, it would be pretty hard for me to blame her for absolutely hating being there, because it does seem like she didn't realize that this was not going to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I ran into Lizzie Olsen, and she said she had a great time and seemed very relaxed about it. So that was comforting.
That does not look like the face of someone who's been comforted. Between that and a bunch of other clips going around, people have speculated that Dakota Johnson signed on to this movie because her manager might have bait and switched her on what the movie was about, saying some shit like, hey, I got you a role in a Marvel movie, without mentioning that it was a Sony one, all of which have been notoriously irredeemable dog shit. And to double down on why she probably didn't seem very comforted by Elizabeth Olsen's vouch for Marvel, Miss Johnson apparently didn't even know what character Olsen played in the MCU.
Do you remember the first Marvel female character that you fell in love with on screen?
I don't. I feel like I've mostly been like watching male Marvel characters.
Dakota might have been exaggerating when she said she's only seen 15 minutes of one Marvel movie, but then she also said she isn't a sarcastic person. So I'm gonna assume that she's only ever seen Steve Rogers when he was still a scrawny little twink. She never got to the part where he becomes Chris Evans. That's the only thing she ever has seen about Marvel. Now you might ask, well, even if that was the case, why would she take the movie just because it's in the MCU? She doesn't even care about it, clearly. She admits she doesn't know anything about it, so she must have done it for the money. And I mean, like, probably, but I think that's as good a reason as any. I didn't watch Madam Web, and I still have the gall to make a video saying it was dog shit. And no matter how close to certain I am it's bad, I don't know for sure, because I haven't seen it. As I've said, my interest lies in everything around this slow-motion train wreck. I'm not saying comic book movies need to be biblically accurate to their source material, but the choice to make Madam Web not an elderly geezer who is completely dependent on life support, blind, and paralyzed is a bold one. This is how she looks in the movie, and for reference, this this is how she usually looks. It's something of a departure for sure. It's as drastic of a change as going from Sonic to Cold Steel the Hedgehog is, just with completely different types of changes made. Now, some of the reviews for this movie are among the best parts of what Madame Web has given to culture at large. People say great art is inspired by suffering and hardship. And this movie made a lot of people suffer, so they were in their bag when typing. I would rather have someone pour cement up my asshole and have it solidified, then have them hammer a nail into it, than have to watch this again. I don't know if you've ever had cement solidified in your asshole and then had a nail hammered into it, but I know, definitely not from experience, that scenario is a real pain in the tush. Wanting to go through that instead of re-watching Madame Web says a lot about Sony's desperation, rubbing viewing audiences a little too raw. We know they've been kind of pathetically trying to make every character under the Spider-Man umbrella that they have the rights to work. They are scraping the bottom of the barrel already with some of the movies they are greenlighting. Kraven the Hunter, a Spider-Man villain who is indeed important, but who has never played a central role in a movie before, is getting an R-rated solo film. As if the audience for some shit like that wasn't niche enough already. Bad Bunny, the music artist, at one point was going to play a Spider-Man villain that I haven't even heard of called El Muerto. That is until Bad Bunny found the good sense to go, never mind, and he dipped out of the project last year, and now no one knows what's happening with it. It just begs the question, I definitely used that phrase wrong, but why is Sony even reaching this deep into their catalog? Like, you might as well just use the Spider brand for everything, since you're already unconcerned about how much the name is being tarnished by these movies. Like, why do Madame Web before doing a normal fucking Spider-Woman movie? It's the most obvious spin-off of Spider-Man. Make the Spider-Person a Spider-Woman. Fucking do Spider-Gwen with Emma Stone even. That character's already popular. I'm sure if you gave Emma enough money, she would do it too. You might not even have to trick her into taking on the role like you did with the poor victims who unknowingly starred in Madame's Web. Not only is there more content to mine for there that maybe an actually decent movie could come out of, but it has the word spider in it. That's the word everyone recognizes, which is branding they clearly wanted to bank on the connection of with Madame Web, despite them making absolutely no bank at all by the end. The only reason I could see them holding back on using anything like this is because they don't want to use anything that's being used in any form by successful movies. Like, Spider-Gwen is already really popular because of Across the Spider-Verse. They don't want to double dip. Either that, or they're saving a bunch of bigger spin-off stuff for the next Tom Holland movies, or like a live-action Miles Morales. If so, and they're holding off making spin-offs of the stronger Spider-Man properties they have access to, certainly someone at Sony has to accept at some point that they're just pissing away money by funding these things. They're throwing millions of dollars at them, and all they're left with is like little piles of shit those movies left on the bed. This is a question for people in boardrooms who care enough to answer it more than I do. That being caring at all. I'm gonna wrap this video up here. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe. This has been Kwite, and I am surprisingly not Spider-Man.